Hello and welcome to the second episode of Mantosh Speaks Corporate, the strategy talk series. Today, we'll focus our attention on pricing strategy, discounting, and operations. This is a very important function and a strategic monetization lever for any company, whether you are a startup, growing company, or a big scaled up enterprise. If you're not careful right from the beginning, you will end up paying lots of money to just create your pricing SKUs, maintain them, and operationalize them. And we'll talk about how the cost spreads right from the conception of a pricing of your products all the way to operation and maintenance. So in today's topic, we'll cover 3 or 4 key aspects of pricing strategy. First of all, how pricing strategy impacts your company depending upon where you place your pricing function inside your corporate functions. Second, we'll talk about some of the prevalent or fundamental models of pricing, and there we will focus mostly on the SaaS pricing. Then we'll go into how do you package and price your products and the portfolio of products. What should be the unit of measures, or popularly known as meters. And then we'll talk about how do you operationalize it in the best manner possible to avoid some of the pitfalls of lack of planning, lack of strategy, lack of operation. So let's start with where should pricing function be placed in a company. I have seen pricing function reside in a finance function. I have also seen pricing reside in marketing. I have seen pricing reside in product, and I have seen pricing reside in sales and operations. Now let's think about which one is the optimal and which one is suboptimal or not so great. It also depends on what is the strategic objective of your company in terms of where you want to place pricing. Let's say if there is a big company, they have been here for a long time, they are at a global scale. There, if your goal is to maintain your gross margin, if you happen to be in a high gross margin industry, typically SaaS companies are, or the companies which are transitioning from product into the SaaS space. And why they are transitioning? Because SaaS gives you better predictability. It also commands a premium on the Wall Street. So these are the reason. If you're a for-profit company, you want to make sure that how you maximize your profit, how you maximize your shareholder value. So for this reason, if you have ability to convert your perpetual software licenses, perpetual hardware products into a subscription and SaaS model, it is advisable to do that. But that's a different topic. Coming back to the point, if you are an established company and you want to protect your margin, you want to grow your margin, that's when it makes sense to probably put pricing and discounting function into the finance organization. Why? Because finance is the custodian of your profitability and your gross margin and street reporting. If a company is at a different stage in their growth curve, they're a high growth company, and what matters to them is how do we get more and more net new ACV. So net new ACV stands for net new annual contract value. How do you get new contracts? In those companies, sales seem to be the prime mover. They are out in front. trying to get every deal possible for the company from different types of customer. In that type of environment where the cash is king, you may want to put pricing and discounting function into a sales function. Now, there is a pitfall of doing that. If you put it in the sales function, when push come to shove, salespeople are interested in deal making. They are not interested in protecting margin or creating margin for the company. If you want just like, okay, let's not worry about margin today, we'll worry about it in future, that's when you put pricing and discounting into a sales function. In other places, we have seen that pricing also reside in the BU. Now, is that a great idea? Maybe, maybe not. If you want pricing to reside in product functions, it would be better to have that product function and product marketing very closely linked, so that not only when you decide what the pricing structure for your product or portfolio of products would be, you can go out and get feedback from the customers or prospects about how your pricing is working. Again, depending upon what your strategic objective is, you can put pricing in any of these functions. Now, there are pluses and minuses, so you may want to think very carefully that where my company is in the growth curve, am I just making deals, however deals they are coming, or do we want to be making deals now thoughtfully and have a structure that scales in the future? Now that we have covered the placing of pricing function within different corporate setting in detail, let's move to the next part of our conversation. What should be the best model for SaaS pricing? Now, there are lots of models in the market, whether it's a cost plus model, which assumes and estimates the cost to serve our customer and our internal cost, and on top of that, it puts certain profitability expectation, and that becomes our band for pricing our product or portfolio of products. While this guarantees a certain amount of profitability for our products, it does leave considerable upside. There is another model which solves this problem, is called the value-based pricing. Now, value-based pricing flips the cost on its head. Here, we are focusing more on what value our products bring to the largest population of prospects and customers, how much more money they can make, how much time they can save, or how much they can save on cost. Based on that, you can do a calculation that whatever is the value that we provide to the customer with our products in solving a problem, helping them grow their revenue, or saving time, you take that number and try to put our pricing at 1/3 of the value. For example, we can save $1 million for a customer. It's fair to price our product within the range of 300K to 400K, because that way we are not leaving the upside in terms of capitalizing on value. Having articulated the value prop and understood the value proposition and determine the range of your pricing, you can decide how do you package your product. In packaging your product, you should try to see that if your packaging can scale for different segments of customers. For the low-end customers, the mid-end customers, and the high-end enterprise customers. So, typical way to price a subscription product a software product is a tiered pricing approach or tiered pricing model. You will see typically the products will have a basic tier, they will have intermediate tier, and the pro tier or advanced tier. You can name it however you want, but you want to make sure that there is a step function in terms of how you are packaging your features, functionalities between these tiers. To not leave any money at the table, some companies, when they are deciding these standard tiers of pricing and packaging, they do add some add-ons. And those are the features where there is a high demand for the customers that they would like to buy on top of the pricing tiers that they have subscribed to. But remember, when you are putting add-ons, be very thoughtful about it, or otherwise it will dilute your entire pricing tiers. Now, once we have determined what the pricing and packaging for our products are going to be, we need to figure out what is the unit of measure, how we are going to capture that value. So depending upon your industry, do not spend inordinate amount of time, but spend enough time knowing that what is the standard unit of measure in your industry. What is the meter that is used to monetize? It goes from like per user basis or seat based pricing meters to use of tokens, use of APIs, number of emails or transactions. So depending upon what captures naturally the value and is well understood by the customer and easier to implement within the company, as well as able to help with measuring the full value through telemetry, so that if there is a usage beyond the stipulated limit or the overages, you are able to monetize with the customers. Although it becomes very controversial very fast, and no customers want to pay for their overages if they don't have to. So make sure that like whatever the telemetry solution that you implement is tied with your pricing and packaging and is implemented in the most transparent way in understanding the real uses. Once we have decided what our different packages are going to be, what their pricing would be, what would be the unit of measures supporting those packages and pricing, and what telemetry solutions we want to implement to not only capture the usage of those meters, but also any overages by the customers, then we are off to the races. Once we have launched our product in the field, we need to measure not only the product performance with the customers, but also in different markets and different sales segment, how our pricing and discounting are performing. And based on that, we need to make sure that how do we periodically iterate on our pricing model and tweak our pricing model to best capture the not only monetary value, but also give the best value to the customer in terms of pricing solutions from our company. Now, having talked about the pricing strategy in some detail, I would like to caution all the companies that are there, from the startup to the mid-range company to the enterprise company. What we should try to use pricing strategy as, and what we should not use pricing strategy for. Pricing strategy is primarily the monetization lever for the company, and make sure that products are reflective of the fair value exchange. Pricing skews should not be a catch-all bucket for the other deficiencies that exist in our contractual system, legal functions, and any other sales or marketing construct which is different than the additional product features, functionalities that pricing strategy is primarily intended for. If we are not careful, your pricing SKUs may balloon. For every contract, you may get into the custom SKU hell, and it not only hurts your ability to sell, because the more SKUs you have, the more SKUs and the features and functionalities and differentiation a sales guy has to remember while selling to the customer. This becomes a sales nightmare. And all the customer service organizations hate it as well, because they can't keep track of which customer, what they are promised, and what services they needed to be provided. So be very careful to design your pricing strategy and create a set of framework in terms of what are the do's and don'ts, what it is and what it should not be. I think we have spent enough time today on talking about pricing strategy. I would love to hear about your comments, your feedback in terms of how does it resonate with you? Does it help? Are there other topics that you would like to hear me in terms of clarifying the pricing strategy that will help you grow your business, scale your business, and be successful overall? Thank you very much. Talk to you later. See you in another episode.